So the first speaker we have is Dr. Debora Santschi, and I'm going to probably be in trouble. Luckily, I have an Australian accent, and Debora has probably part French, so French-Canadian, so that gives us a little bit of leeway. Debora's always had a keen interest in everything that does not produce milk in the barn, such as calves, heifers, dry cows. With a bachelor's degree in animal science, a master's degree in dairy cattle nutrition from McGill University, and a PhD in animal science, Debora is well qualified, and she joined the Lacta's R&D team in 2010 as a nutrition and management expert. Since 2019, Debora is the Innovation and Development Manager at Lactonette Canada. With her communication skills and a passion for dairy production, Debora is a highly coveted speaker. Thus, she's here at Herd 21. Born both in Quebec and internationally. In addition to her role at Lactonette, she's also an adjunct professor in the departments of animal science at University of McGill, Laval and Manitoba, as well as the Department of Veterinary Medicine at the University of Montreal. So what is in the horizon for Canadian farmers, and what can we learn? So with pleasure, introduce Debora to the team. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this nice introduction. So as I always like to say, this is my very long resume. My short resume just says that I was born and raised on a dairy farm. I went to school for way too long, and now I work for Lactonette, which is our national Canadian network for dairy excellence. So I prefer to keep it short. So thank you very much to the organizing committee for having me in Australia today. It's my first visit to Australia. I wish it could have been slightly different. Of course, last night we were watching some of the presentations with my kids. So I'm still Wednesday. I'm a day behind you guys. And my kids thought that you guys don't look like people from the future. I think they were expecting something very different. And they were quite disappointed that you didn't have kangaroos with you in the room. So they're still pretty young, but that's their understanding of different time zones around the globe, which was quite funny. So how are Canadians adapting to the new data normal? I'm just going to make a very quick introduction on what is Lactonette. It might sound a bit new for some of you. So basically, Lactonette was created back in June 2019 as a partnership between the three organizations that you see here. So our Canadian Dairy Network, which was doing all the genetic evaluations for the Canadian cattle population, CanWest DHI, which was the Dairy Herd Improvement Agency for Ontario and western part of the country, as well as Valacta, which is the eastern part of Canada DHI service at that point. So all three of them together joined and formed what is now called Lactonette, of which I'm part of. And to give you just a quick overview of what we do, this is our mission statement. So to be the leading provider of herd management solutions and knowledge support to the development of a prosperous and sustainable Canadian dairy industry. So as you can see, our two main focuses are herd management solutions, which include decision-making tools, any type of support that we can generate from our big database. And knowledge is just second big portion of what we do. We do have a center of expertise, so we do a lot of knowledge transfer, extension services to producers and to the industry. And that's also another one of our big mission or our big roles in the Canadian industry. So just one last slide on what Lactonette is, just to give you an idea. We have two head offices, one in Montreal, which is where I am located, and one in Guelph in Ontario. We have one single national database that couples all the DHI data, that provides all the benchmarking solutions, as well as all the genetic evaluations from our cattle. We have 7,300 dairy farmers who are spread out in 6 different time zones across the country. We have 4 milk labs, where you can see the orange stars. So the biggest one, the one you see on the picture here, is the one in Montreal, which is at our head office. Overall, these labs provide analysis for 5.2 million samples a year, mostly individual cow samples, but in some provinces like Quebec, we also do all the bulk tank samples. So on every second day, we provide analysis on the payment sample as well. We have 20 people in our innovation and development team. So our experts in various topics, as you can see, going from nutrition, welfare, organic, robots, ag economists. We even do goat and sheep production. And these experts provide a big support to our researchers in the universities to make sure that the research gets then transferred to the industry. We develop decision-making tools. We provide support to our staff, sometimes directly to the producers, as well as to the whole industry around us. We have 55 advisors. This is very specific to the eastern part of the country, but basically we act as independent nutritionists. So we have our 55 advisors who collect nutrition and management information on the herds, provide ration formulation. Roughly, that is approximately 800 herds. And as you can guess, these ration information from these 800 herds also get combined to the rest of our data in our national database, so they can provide additional information. Finally, we do provide software solutions. We have a national animal traceability program that we manage. And we do, as I mentioned, a lot of knowledge transfer. We usually have training sessions to producers where we gather roughly 1,200 producers on a yearly basis, every time on different topics, given in hundreds of different sessions, usually in person. And this year, of course, everything being virtual because of COVID. So back to our topic, how do Canadians adapt to the new data normal? I guess the first part is, what is the new data normal? And I just tried to put some words out there. It's basically a whole bunch of stuff coming out to them, right? So our producers need to know about the milk they produce from individual cows, but also the milk they ship in the milk truck. They want to know the yield, the composition, the quality of that milk. They need to monitor everything the cows are eating to make sure it's always perfect, that they have enough for the season. That the forage quality is good, adapted to their needs. There's a genetic influence of their herds, which they must take into consideration with new parameters coming out. There's time management, reproduction, health, the transition period, the calves, the heifers. All this is transitioning around them, and they need to make sure they monitor everything at the same time while they still respond to consumer expectations, as well as government policies and environmental policies on the other side. So I guess it's pretty much the same all over the world. Producers have so many things to look at once, and they sometimes don't know where to go first or which one will have the biggest impact. There's just so many things that they need to monitor at the same time. So we thought, basically, what do they actually want and what do they actually need? We thought that the best way to know that was simply to ask the producers themselves. So about 2 years ago, we had some sessions with some groups of producers, and of course from a milk composition type of approach, but we asked them, what are you expecting? How can we help you? And what do you actually want and need to be able to manage your farm? So I'll share with you the main points that they highlighted. First of all, they want to have the data centralized. They don't want to go everywhere in 6 different softwares, 22 PDFs, and 2 websites to get access to the data that they need to manage their herd. They would like everything to be in one single spot. Easy to do when the data comes from a single source, a bit more complicated to do when it comes from different sources. But I think we all agree on that, right? For whatever we do in our daily management or even like personal life, ideally, if everything is in the iPhone and I don't need all the other devices around me, that's better. So we are focusing our projects, our developments to try to aim towards that centralized data where we provide all the information. What else do they want? They want to have custom key indicators. They want to be able to select which one is most important for them and which one they want to be monitored on. So again, this means no more PDF reports. We need to go towards interactive reports that do provide information on whatever the producer wants to monitor, which criteria is most important in his management. They ask for custom benchmarks. They don't want to be compared against the average. They want to be compared against the high-producing robot herds in this specific area that have Jersey cows, whatever. So they want to be able to compare themselves against others that are in the same situation as what they are. They also asked us to put a much bigger focus on economics. Sustainability in prosperous industry implies economics. They want to see the dollar signs linked to the management decisions that they take. They want to be less emotional and more economics focused, so they ask us to make sure we provide that in our tools. They also want to have alerts. Okay, they don't want to be responsible to look at all those things. They want them to pop up and tell them what to do. So that's one other big aspect, and I'll show you some examples of what we're working on right now. And finally, they want us to bring diagnostics, but they also want us to bring them solutions. So very important that it's not only here's your issue, they also want us to tell them here's what you should do to prevent this or to solve the issue that you have right now on the farm. And again, I'll show you how we're trying to adapt to this request and what we're working on. So some examples of the things we do. Well, first of all, animal welfare is a big issue. Producers wanted to have a way to monitor it on farm. We do have a national program that does audits on every second year, but we wanted to provide them a way to make sure that they could monitor the results between two audits. So basically, we recently developed those mobile apps where they can evaluate the injury, get a small report on the prevalence of the injury on the day of the evaluation, as well as evaluate lameness according to different scores. To make sure that the data is of good quality, of course, we need to be pretty precise in the data that is entered. So what we decided to do was to provide, as you can see, pictures. They can get a written description of how to score the cows to make sure that everybody does it properly. And for example, for the locomotion score for lameness, they can also watch a video that shows them how the cow walks, depending on the different locomotion scores that we want to give them. So basically provide them the way to enter the data, but also because it's going to be several different people entering data in our data set, make sure that we have a good way to make sure the data is reliable. What are we going to do with that? So again, they don't want to have too much values. They like to have indexes that are very reliable and that are that represent what's going on the farm. So this here is a welfare index that we are developing. We make sure that it correlates with the lameness and injury prevalence in the herd, as well as with the national audit. And we can now predict pretty closely, based on DHI, regular DHI data, we can try to predict an overall welfare index for each herd. So again, when a herd does improvements on his management, on the housing, on whatever they do, they should see those scores increase, which provides them an indication that they are getting better in what they have been aiming for or working on in the last years. So as you can see, it provides the producer his previous year, current year averages, a ranking for each of the traits, and an overall score, which for this specific herd here is 62%. So an overall score on how well they score for welfare indexes. And as I said, this is pretty well correlated with the lameness and injury percentage that we notice on those herds. Some other things that we are working on, and I think this has been mentioned a little bit as well yesterday for you guys, milk fatty acid profiles. So instead of measuring only total fat, we have the infrared analyzers to measure the types of fatty acids that are present in that fat. And just to give a fatty acid 101 class, basically, let's say we have two herds with a fat percentage of 4% in their milk. They can have pretty different profiles in there. Okay, the de novo fatty acids are the short ones, the ones who represent rumen health and the fat that is synthesized in the mammary gland. The preformed fatty acids in green are the fats coming from the feed or body mobilization. And the mixed fatty acids in the middle are the ones that come from either source. So two herds could have the exact same fat content, but pretty different fatty acid profiles in there to generate the same overall result. So this here is a report that we have launched about a year ago. So just quickly to go over the lines, the top blue line is the butter fat content for the herd. The orange line is the protein. And the three lines you see at the bottom is the fatty acid profile. So as you can see with the places where it's circled, the fatty acids sometimes move all over the place, but the fat and protein don't move. Whereas if the same type of effect occurs a bit later, then it might eventually have an impact on the protein concentration of that milk, showing that the rumen has been impacted by this change. So we want to help the producers with that because it's a lot of different lines to monitor at the same time. And we're working on it to provide more support in using this. So basically what we are doing is using artificial intelligence to better understand that and also generate alerts. So as you can see, whenever the profile changes, we would send an alert to the producer that would always be different because it's not the same change that we measure that is occurring. The alert will eventually turn into a diagnostic. So the first one could say, for example, your cows are mobilizing. The second one would say your ration has changed. And the third one could say your rumen is not functioning properly anymore. You need to do something, right? And as we go on with that and learn more, what we want to do ultimately is to propose a solution. So the producer would get a text message on his iPhone telling him, you should increase the energy intake of your cows. So either the quantity or the density of the ration, but you need to do something. The second alert could tell him something like monitor the forage composition, reduce the fat content of the ration. It looks like you seem to have too much of that. So how do we do those diagnostics and solutions? It's basically a lot through our field advisors that do have this technical information. We have producers where we ask them to monitor all the changes that they do on farm. And as they enter them and we get more and more information, basically machine learning techniques help to better understand what's going on and then generate very precise alerts and solutions for the producers. We also use this fatty acid profile to develop models working on resilience. So resilience is a reaction to whatever stress factor that a cow or a herd might experience. So we want to use it on both levels, right? At the herd level, we want to see, okay, which herds don't react as much, let's say, to summer heat stress. Which herds are more resilient on some other types of challenges that occur, because obviously these herds do something special that we can learn about. At the cow level, we want to see how the cows adapt to changes. So some cows get better through the transition period, to the summer heat waves. What do those cows have in particular which makes them easier to manage in these stressful periods? Because obviously those are the cows that we want to keep in the herd because they will have less issues. So looking at what they have in common. This project is just starting, but maybe to put it in a small concept for more geneticians in the room, basically we measure the P, and we do have the G value in our genetic database, but this is really to also better understand what E, how the cow reacts to the environmental factors that affect them. We work a lot with milking robot producers. Of course, as a DHI company, some of them think that they don't need milk recording that much anymore. But we also realize that even robot producers get so much data that they sometimes don't know what to do with it. So we build projects where we work directly with the producers. We bring them into as groups and we co-develop whatever decision-making tool they would like to have on farm. And one of the recent tools that we are working on right now and finishing maybe in a couple months is a milking robot efficiency. Producers want to know how efficient in terms of milk or kgs of butter fat their cows are, to be able to better select the cows that do pay back the quickest in the AMS system. We have another tool where we work on a lifetime profit prediction. So this will be to be an aid in a culling decision tool. So basically, this one is it's at the early stages. It's more to develop all the methodology and the pipeline behind it. But it will help to compare cows at different lifetime stages and try to predict their lifetime profit, so that if the producer has to get rid of one or two of the cows, that he can easily look at this and see which cows are more profitable for him and which ones should be sent to some second life. Let's put it like this. Finally, one of the future projects that we will be addressing very shortly, and it was mentioned that I like whatever does not produce milk. So transition cows are one of my favorite groups in the farm. The transition period as a whole, right? We ask the producers, again, this is also done with producers together. We ask them what they want to see and how they want this data related to transition period to be handled or presented. So basically, we have an index, which is called the Transition Cow Index, which is an objective evaluation of the transition period, that we are updating at the moment, that will be part of this big dashboard on transition. But we asked producers what else they wanted to see there. So of course, they want to see in one single picture the milk composition of the early lactation cows. So BHB, the NEFAs, the fatty acids, other types of metabolites we could find in there. They also want to see the dry period length and be able to visualize the pen moves of the cows to see if they can link it with the performance of the cow in early lactation. They would like to see the peak milk yield. When is the peak and when does it occur and how much milk are the cows producing? They want to monitor body condition score at calving, at dry off, in early lactation, and of course also see the changes between those different stages of the transition period. They want to see fertility traits, and this is where we have a nice collaboration coming up with Australia to be able to include this in our transition dashboard. They want to see up to the reproductive performance of these cows. Okay, they want to have a glance all at once and see what's going on all at the same time. They want to, of course, see also the genetic potential to make sure that their decisions pay back and that they can monitor the genetic decisions that they are taking at the same at this stage. And of course, milk quality, so udder status at dry off, as well as in early lactation to monitor the health of the mammary gland of their cows. Probably others that will come up in the next years, but one thing that they keep mentioning to them is, on top of that, they want to make sure they can custom the benchmarks. They want to have alerts on the cows to monitor. They want to have diagnostics of what's going well or not going well in the herd, and they want all this to provide solutions at the same time. So very easy to do. As you can see, a lot of work for us, but I think this is the new data normal that our producers want to be able to manage, and they do require artificial intelligence and our help to be able to put all that together. One additional thing that is of big interest is, could we have predicted everything that is going on in the transition period? Could we have known about that before we even dry off the cow? So of course, that is more for the future years, but that might be coming as well at some point. Sorry. So in summary, I think based on the presentations yesterday and what you will see today, you all agree that there's a huge amount of data that is available to our producers. With the next years, with all the sensors and all this, there's even more coming all the time. We need to keep in mind what the producers need and what they want to see. We always need to keep them in the middle of what we do to make sure that it's adapted to them. And our role basically is to make sure that this data is understandable, useful, and adapted to their needs, to make sure that it gets helpful for whatever decision that they need to make on the farm. So we go with the approach of diagnostic, solution, and ultimately coming to predictions for them, always keeping in mind that the producer is in the middle of it, and we need to make sure we follow the needs and the requirements of our producers. So with all that being said, thank you very much for your attention. I do hope that you enjoyed the summer months. We are looking forward to summer. This is a picture that was taken about 10 days ago, so we're still pretty much in the middle of winter. But it is slowly getting warmer. We're getting there, just like you are moving out of it, I guess. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Deborah. In such a short period of time, you've taken through a great journey of what's happened and the services that are provided in Canada. I just have one question I would like. You mentioned about the consolidation of your industry, the three organisations into one. Has that made a difference to the investment in the services and technology that you're now delivering, or was it something that was being done separately and now has come together? I'd be interested in that little journey as well. Thank you.
Sure. So we have always been close partners together. We were just not officially under one single partnership. But of course, the Canadian Dairy Network was always using our milk recording data for genetic evaluations. It's just that now whenever we develop a new tool, we automatically include the genetic side to it, whereas, we share the resources, if you want, much more than we used to do before, which accelerates the innovation and the money input that we can provide in our projects.
Okay, thanks. Now, I'm just wondering if there's anyone in the room, any questions? I'm not moderating Slido, but I'm not sure if there's anything come through there. No. So if there's no questions from the room, I'm going to just a great big thank you for providing such a wonderful insight to what's happening in Canada, and all the best of coming out of those wintry positions you're in. So on behalf of the crowd, I'd like to thank Debora for her presentation.
Thank you very much.